Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
So glad you've joined us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Your stool is ready. Rob Long is in for Jim Garrity again today. Rob, of course, contributing editor, National Review Online, host of the Martini Shot, co-founder of Ricochet, co-host of the Glob podcast. And Rob, before we even get to the good, bad, and crazy martinis, which are going to be good fodder for us today, you are a minor prophet, because just yesterday or the day before, whenever you're talking about Andrew Cuomo and his latest scandal, you talked about how he's not going to get impeached. He's not going to be forced to resign because he's basically just going to give away political favors to enough people to make sure that there are never enough votes to get rid of him. And you said one of those will be to legalize marijuana for recreational use. Well, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed legislation Wednesday to legalize cannabis for recreational use. It's now the 15th U.S. state that has legalized it, and it represents a potentially broad market for consumption. No kidding. Residents will be allowed to smoke pot anywhere that smoking tobacco is allowed, although local jurisdictions may enact stricter rules on where marijuana use is permitted. The law signed by Cuomo directs 40% of tax revenue from marijuana sales toward communities where African American and Latino residents have been disproportionately arrested on charges stemming from the marijuana use. New York Times reporting that. So, Rob, I don't know if you had an inkling that it was this soon, or you just assumed it was obvious given the pandering Cuomo had to do, but well done.
Well, thank you. I just had to think of what's the stupidest thing and the least useful thing he could do. First of all, marijuana smoking is already legal in New York City. Everyone, and I smell it constantly. And I live on the third floor, and I live in a townhouse. I can smell people walking by. I mean, it's no one's. And the idea that it's going to be legal anywhere smoking cigarettes is legal is another thing that all conservatives know isn't true, because we know that cigarette smoking is illegal everywhere. It's almost illegal in your own home. If they could make it illegal in your house, they would. Pot smoking is legal everywhere. People smoke pot on the street, and if you were smoking a cigarette, you get a dirty look. So it won't just be legal; it'll be extra legal, super legal, extra double plus good legal, and of course, it won't matter because there'll be no real revenue to it. This is not a solution to anything except Cuomo's current unpopularity.
Well, if things do go wrong, and I'm guessing, given the rush to this, we'll learn some things over time once it's been legalized pretty much everywhere, that may have not been the greatest decision, but we'll see. But if we do come to that conclusion, as folks did with tobacco, I look forward, if we're still around in a generation or two, to all these states' attorneys general suing big marijuana for hundreds of millions or billions of dollars.
Big weed.
All right, on to the real martinis now, Rob. And one thing that we have seen so far from polling is that folks are giving Joe Biden a honeymoon. I mean, most of his approval numbers are in the mid to high 50s. I think in the beginning it was even in the low 60s. But on one issue, the public is seeing the light here, and the issue is immigration. Morning Consult has done the polling. According to a new poll, 49% of voters disapprove of Biden's handling of immigration issues, up 8% since mid-March, while 40% approve, down 6 points over the same time period. Meanwhile, we're up to 20% of Democrats disapproving, and I think this is the most important statistic. 53% of all voters say Biden's changes to Trump-era border policies and not seasonal migration, which is what he said it was at the press conference last week, are causing the current situation at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, they still have him at 58% overall, so this one issue doesn't seem to be moving the needle a ton on people's overall opinion of him. But, if it gets worse and worse, it could. And if it happens on other issues, certainly it will. So what do you make of the public seeing the light, despite the media and the Biden administration trying to say there's nothing to see here? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
This is all a sign of success for the Democrats. I mean, they successfully demonized the Trump policy. They successfully demonized the idea of what you do with unaccompanied minors at the border. They successfully used the cages, kids in cages, as a rallying cry. They were so successful that they now have inherited that toxic soup that they brewed. And people, normal people, are looking at pictures, the ones that they just allowed. I think just this morning they allowed pictures, the Biden administration allowed pictures, and they say, hey, wait a minute. Those look like kids in cages to me. And I think some Biden spokesman says they're not cages per se. They're just they're plastic enclosures. But the Biden administration is ordering more of them. There will be more of those unaccompanied minors and families that are separated in those plastic enclosures we can use. And they have set that this is a predicate that they have set. They said that there was a solution to this problem. And they said that Trump's solution was cruel and draconian and unnecessary. And now the people said, okay, now you try. And suddenly we hear, well, it's very complicated. That's how you know they're losing. When the Biden administration and their lickspittle press says things like, well, it's a very complicated problem, which they didn't say for 4 years under Trump. They said it was easy and Trump was bad, and now it's complicated and Biden's doing his best. The truth is, of course, it is complicated. There are no easy solutions. A wall wouldn't really be the solution, although it would have been a start, and he promised to build one and he didn't do it. But ultimately, you have to come up with a policy that addresses the fact that we have thousands of unskilled laborers want to come here, and we are doing a very weird thing by making it fairly easy to come here as an unskilled laborer and fairly difficult to come here as a skilled, educated laborer. And that is not a recipe for a country to grow in the 21st century. We just got to figure that out. And that's going to mean some sad things, like some families on the border are not going to come in, or they might get separated, or a lot of things might happen to people who try to cross the border down south. And that's not a solution we're really going to be able to solve. And I think the Biden administration is getting what's the word? It's getting its first dose of reality. And unfortunately for him, it's sort of early in his term. I think he's going to suffer from this. I think the Democrats will suffer from this. But they are eating at a table that they set. They are being held to standards that they created. And I know they regret it.
I think that's probably right. And, they decried Trump's "you have to stay in Mexico until your case is resolved" policy. I think that was probably one of the smarter pieces of immigration policy we've had in a long time. And, of course, Biden also said that this started under the previous administration. I don't think it started before November 6th, though. Or whatever election day was, because, when the guy who certainly appears to have won, even well before Inauguration Day, had said, we're not going to deport anyone for 100 days, that's pretty much a green light. But the craziest aspect of this, Rob, and you're the perfect person to ask this because you're such a wordsmith, is the fighting over the semantics. No, it's not a crisis. It's a challenge. It's not a crisis, but it's complicated. So I guess we're only using the C words in our dictionary here. But why the big fight over whether it's a crisis or a challenge or it's complicated? People see that it's not going well, and they're holding you responsible for it, at least on this poll. So why not just admit, you know what, this is a crisis? Who cares? What terminology you use?
Well, it matters, because if it's a crisis, then you can come to a month later and say, what have you done about the crisis? The reason you don't want to call it a crisis is because there is no solution to it. Except a complicated thing involving a certain amount of border security that's going to be draconian, and there are going to be pictures of that, and it's going to be ugly. But you got to do it, and then there's going to probably be after a period of border security, there's going to be some kind of amnesty. None of these things are popular; they are all complicated, and calling it a crisis means I have to solve it, and there is no solution. So that's why they want to tamp it down. Look, the analogy here is Barack Obama becoming president and saying what he wanted was to stop having American troops overseas die and be blown up in IEDs and various other things. So his solution was more drone strikes, right? Nobody launched more drone strikes than Barack Obama because they were out of the camera. No one saw them. Innocent people were killed, all sorts of things that if it was a Republican president, we would be hearing about 24/7. Nobody saw these things. There were no pictures. So it's like they didn't exist. And that is what the Biden administration wants to do. They want to make this problem not go away, because there's no way to make it go away. They want to make the coverage of it go away. And so the only way to do that is to tone down the language. So it'll go from, it's no longer a crisis. It'll go from a concern to a challenge to a continuing solution set to some other thing, to a commission, to a bipartisan commission. And meanwhile, the numbers of legal immigrants will sort of ebb and flow according to the economy. This country, we're going to come back strong, I think, after this, after COVID, and there's going to be a surge of illegals coming in to what they always do when the economy grows up north and the labor market gets tight. That's what happens. unless you get tough. The Democrats have already said getting tough is not an option.
No, they're not going to get tough at all. And, I'm surprised I haven't heard more people saying, well, he's only been in office for 2.5 months. And the response to that, of course, is, well, he's been in Washington for 48 years and 2.5 months. So he should have a pretty good idea of how this works, but apparently not. So,
and I'm not even sure 48 years is correct. I think it might be longer. It might be 80 or 90 years.
Sure,
I think I saw a picture, like an old Civil War photograph, and I'm pretty sure I saw Biden in it.
Obviously, Rob, they need to see clearly on this issue and many others, as we're going to discuss today. And so for that, you want to be able to buy glasses that are fantastic products, but you can also get very conveniently and do so online. And that's where Coastal comes in. Because look, you might be worried about how they'd actually look in real life, but Coastal makes it easy. You can browse and virtually try on hundreds of frames without having to leave your couch. At Coastal.com, you get prescription glasses starting at $9. That's right, $9 with free shipping and 60-day risk-free returns. And I'll tell you, Coastal came around at just the right time for me. I decided to get new glasses with my regular optometrist. I don't know whether it was the angle that they put them in the frames, but I had to redo it 2 or 3 times, and it still wasn't perfect. And so I got the chance to go to Coastal at limited expense, and first crack, man, they nailed that prescription right away. So if you think, they're not going to get it right because it's online, not true. Those are the ones I wear now. So if you're thinking about getting new glasses and you don't want to spend a ton, give Coastal a shot.
Coastal has over 2,000 frames to choose from and 24-hour customer support. So that's what Newsweek says when it calls it America's best customer service. And when you buy a pair from Coastal, you can donate a pair to someone in need in just one click at no extra cost. To date, Coastal has given more than 500,000 pairs of glasses to people in need across the world. Starting at $9, there's no need to leave the sofa. This is the new way to shop for glasses. Coastal.com.
Now, and for a limited time, they're offering 3 Martini Lunch listeners the best deal they've got going anywhere. 30% off your first pair of glasses at coastal.com/martini. Get free shipping, 60-day risk-free returns, and again, 30% off at coastal.com/martini. The discount will be applied at checkout, but it's only for a limited time. coastal.com/martini. Some restrictions apply. Coastal.com/martini. All right, Jim. Well, Joe Biden.
Jim, you call me Jim.
Oh, sorry.
That's nice. Jim's on one of his endless vacations. Or you know what? It just seems like he's on vacation all the time because I'm only here when he's on vacation.
Rob, my apologies.
No worries.
Let's talk about Joe Biden. He might not have a clue about the border, but he and his aides are definitely trying to cram through every liberal, or even, that's not even a fair word anymore, far left wish list item into every piece of legislation. You saw all the giveaways to unions and blue state bailouts and the COVID relief bill that didn't really have a ton of COVID relief. Now he's talking about infrastructure, but infrastructure covers a lot of stuff, Rob, and we're not even going to get to a lot of the bad parts here, but 3 of them are certainly going to be discussed here. 1, he's looking to implement the PRO Act, which is the federal version of AB 5 in California, which is supposed to help gig economy workers, freelancers, by forcing employers to provide benefits for them. What that does in reality is forcing employers not to use freelancers, and so the freelancers are in rough economic shape. Joe Biden wants to do that nationwide. He also essentially wants to wipe out the right to work, which is legal in 27 states. And he also says he wants to give everybody a fair chance to unionize. But what that really means is if you're part of any collective bargaining effort or you benefit from that, even if you're not part of a union, you've got to pay union dues. That's where he's headed with that. And if that's not enough, they're trying to cram a bunch of different provisions from the Green New Deal, which Joe Biden said in the campaign, of course, he didn't want to do. And then once he was the presumptive nominee, he said he's going to base his climate agenda on a lot of things that were in the Green New Deal. So it's a catch-all. They're going to try to use reconciliation. In other words, they don't need to deal with the filibuster. A simple majority would do it, which makes me quite nervous. Joe Manchin's a big fan of the unions, so I wouldn't expect him to get in the way, although if they put too much climate stuff in there, he might. So, Rob, what do you make of the aggressive nature here? Overplaying their hand or striking while the iron is hot?
Well, I think a little bit of both, right? I mean, you never know if you've overplayed your hand unless you really go for it. I mean, I sort of admire the fact that he's going for it. I'm terrified, as you are, of a lot of these things. Look, all the right to work laws, I think the state ones won't hold up. States get to decide that stuff, I think. especially if it goes to this Supreme Court, which tends to defer to the states more than any other. But paycheck protection, which is which is what the right has called it for years, paycheck protection is a winning issue for the right, which means that you can't just have your paycheck garnished and pay dues to a union you don't like and don't approve of. That has actually been a pretty good wedge issue for Republicans in certain states over the past 20 years. And again, 20 years, that's what we're talking about. A lot of these things just feel like, my God, somebody went to the basement and dug up a bunch of old stuff and thought, well, put this in, what the hell? So what I'm hoping is that all this stuff is going to be in a giant mess and get sort of negotiated out and yelled at, and the really bad stuff will get removed. I'm not sure that's true. And that's what I'm hoping, because right now they seem to have a more leverage than the other side. I mean, the other stuff in the infrastructure bill is also, I mean, it's sort of built to self-destruct. There's the procurement, when the government's going to have to buy all this stuff, the procurement policies, which are going to be incredibly corrupt, because there's also the Buy American problem. So you're going to have to buy American, but you're going to have to have competitive bids. We're going to have one company, one American company doing most of it. I guess ultimately here's what I think people on the right should take away. It is important to vote for rhinos. Rhinos are important. If we had a couple more ladies from Maine and a couple more Joe Manchins, although he's not really a rhino, but he's like a dino. If we had a couple more of these sort of middle ground, middle people, middle senators in the Senate and in the House too, a lot of this stuff wouldn't feel so imminent. It's traditional now for Republicans to say things like, I don't want any of those rhinos in there. But when it comes down to this stuff, if the best you can do is a rhino, get yourself a rhino. If you're in a blue state and a moderate Democrat is running for a statewide office, and the real conservative, whatever that means, can't win, vote for the moderate. Rhinos will save you, even though that's probably not a message people want to hear. But when this thing starts to move through Congress, you'll be looking for the rhinos to hold the dam.
Well, as you dodge the rotten fruit and tomatoes that are being thrown at you for what you just said there, Rob, are you talking about...
Call me Jim again. Maybe they'll send the hate mail to Jim.
Are you talking about voting for them because that gets you a Republican majority and then these things die on arrival and you don't even have to deal with them?
Yeah. Well, both. I mean, more spending caution in Congress, better. And that is sort of that is should be on every fortune cookie. So if you really, I understand the need to want to vote for the real rock rib conservative, but what you really want to do is to make sure that we have paycheck protection for union workers. We have right to work laws. We have an infrastructure. If we're going to do infrastructure spending, it's not a total boondoggle. It's not basically with the woke agenda, called freeway and rail construction. We need all of that stuff to be taken care of, and sometimes a rhino is the best you can do. And if that's the best you can do, then that's what you should vote for. I mean, look, full disclosure, I am a rhino, but I'm not running for anything. But I am just reminding my friends who are more conservative than I, which is basically everybody, that there's a time and a place for a rhino, and this is the time and the place for it. Don't forget it.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I feel like Bill Lundberg in Office Space. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I generally go with the Buckley rule. You vote for the most conservative person that you think can win in your constituency. But if I must admit it, I'm a purist that I am not a fan of the 17th Amendment. I think the state legislatures should be picking these people, and just think, given Republican control of state legislatures, how different the balance in the U.S. Senate would be right now. But
I don't know if I disagree with that. I'm just talking about 2021 as it exists, Greg.
Yes.
Like you're talking about some major infrastructure work on our form of government, which I'm not against, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Probably not going to go back to the way it was. But,
Like, we are true conservatives, and that is a thing that if given the choice, we will always want to go back.
I'd love to go back and redo 1913, man. Woodrow Wilson, 16th, 17th Amendments, the Federal Reserve, all that stuff. Just a mess. Okay. All right, Rob. After this fierce debate over who ought to be in the U.S. Senate, let's just rest for a moment and talk about MyPillow. MyPillow giving the same attention that they've given their pillows to their towels. Right now, MyPillow, you can get 2 of the 6-piece towel sets for one low price and free shipping.
MyPillow towels have proprietary technology that makes these towels highly absorbent. They're soft to the touch without that lotiony feel. I love that description because I know exactly what they mean, and I hate that. And MyPillow towels have none of that. There's a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. They're washable. They're dryable. There are 7 colors to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm using the towels right now, and when they say highly absorbent, they're not kidding. I am dry quickly. A single 6-piece set includes 2 bath towels, 30 inches by 56, a 2-pack of hand towels, 16 inches by 30, and a 2-pack of washcloths, 13 by 13, all high quality. Visit mypillow.com to learn more and to order right now. 3 Martini Lunch listeners can get all 6-piece towel sets, buy 2 for one low price, and get free shipping. Use the promo code MARTINI at checkout or call 800-874-0104. That's mypillow.com, code MARTINI. Or call 800-874-0104 for 2 6-piece towel sets for one low price and free shipping. All right, Rob, let's talk about the battle over boys versus girls. I don't know how you even teach sex ed these days. It was pretty awkward even when we went through it in school, but at least it was fairly basic. This is how we determine what's a boy. This is how we determine what's a girl. Not how it's done, at least in the media and on the left anymore. But hopefully reality can be reasserted here quickly. As we mentioned, Jim is on vacation. Rob is filling in for him here. Alexandra DeSanctis is writing the Morning Jolt this week, and she's focusing on a CNN article written by a breaking news reporter named Devin Cole, who wrote 2 different paragraphs that just boggle the mind here, Rob. Talking about Kristi Noem and her whole ordeal in South Dakota about banning biological males from girls' sports. Here's the first paragraph. Though the 2 executive orders signed by Noem do not explicitly mention transgender athletes, they reference the supposed harms of the participation of males, quote unquote, in women's athletics, an echo of the transphobic claim cited in other similar legislative initiatives that transgender women are not women. The orders also reference biological sex, a disputed term that refers to the sex as listed on students' original birth certificates. But here's the real head against the desk paragraph. It's not possible to know a person's gender identity at birth, and there's no consensus criteria for assigning sex at birth, Cole asserted. And Alexander says, in a statement better fit for an unhinged opinion article than a news article by a breaking news reporter. And so obviously the claim is you got to let these kids grow up and just determine what their identity is before you can start treating them one way or the other, instead of obviously looking at male or female anatomy and determining it that way, or the chromosomes, which are obviously a very distinct way of doing that. Rob, look, every debate in this country gets pretty heated at times. I think people struggling with this deserve empathy. Those of us who are not struggling with it probably can't understand exactly what that's like, but it doesn't change biological reality. How you treat these people can be a matter of question here. But for the media, I mean, we literally have the left and the media, but I repeat myself, trying to say that your biological anatomy and your chromosomes do not determine your sex. I mean, this is supposed to be the party of science. Talk about denying reality as part of a political agenda here. It's truly, truly insane. And if you acknowledge the reality, you're a bigot who has to be silenced.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to think of anything weirder, right? I mean, admitting that the sex definitions and sex and that there is a consensus for sex determination at birth doesn't seem like it should be that controversial, and it also doesn't seem like it has anything to do necessarily with how you treat trans people, nor should it. The 2 things going on here are very strange. One is this relentless need for the left to step on its own argument, to ruin its own momentum, to prove to Americans that they are genuinely weird. This is a genuinely weird thing to say, and most Americans on the left and on the right know it's nonsense. And for a party to align itself with nonsense, That's dangerous. That is a dangerous thing. It's the QAnon of the left because it's crazy, and everybody kind of can point to it and laugh at it and knows that it's crazy. The second thing that I think so strange about it is that we're talking about a non-problem statistically. I'm not going to use I'm going to use probably a word's going to get me into trouble. But the number of people in America who are trans is a statistically trivial number. It's very small. The number of people who struggle with this, and I think it is a struggle, I think it's real, but there's a statistically small number of those people. It really isn't going to be hard to accommodate them without actually changing fundamental, foundational definitions of biology. And I think our need to do that and to codify, or the left's need to do that and to codify it, is a sign that they almost like they've run out of things to complain about. It would be much better, and I think be much better for all trans people, if we just shut up about it and made accommodations when they appear to be necessary to be made. But the idea that we're going to be telling doctors in medical school, by the way, that thing you see there, that's not what that means, is utterly ludicrous. And I think American people know it. And the more the left pushes this, the more they're going to undermine their own momentum of turning America into a brave socialist state. In order to do that, you got to get people have to believe that you live in the real world. This is not real world.
On the opposite shore here, on the extreme, as much as we love pointing out, yes, there really are boys and there really are girls, and there are pretty easy ways to tell. Gender reveal parties, Rob, have gotten insane, and they're literally getting people killed. We've had pyrotechnics go wrong, people getting killed with explosions that were supposed to happen. Now the New York Post reporting a gender reveal in Mexico went tragically wrong when a plane streaming a sign about a baby girl plunged into the waters off Cancun, killing 2 people on board, while the parents-to-be and their guests watched in horror from a boat, according to reports. So, as Jim and I have said, I think there was a massive West Coast wildfire that started because somebody did a pyrotechnic gender reveal last year. And so, send an email, do a video, post it on whatever social media account you like. We're celebrating human life here. Let's not lose human life by pointing out that you're going to have a boy or a girl.
Or just shut up and keep it to yourself. Does anybody care? Look, I've never been to one. I don't think I predict. The whole idea of this, it just seems like only a certain generation of Americans, or maybe the younger generation Americans, thinks that every single moment in their lives needs to be celebrated with some kind of over-the-top fashion. I mean, these are the kids. These are the children of the every kid gets a trophy generation, right? These are the everything these kids have done has been celebrated. They've been protected and cosseted and awarded. They all have trophies for nothing. And so now when they're about ready to have their child, their first child or second child, they think that's something that everyone needs to celebrate. Let me tell you, I think that underlying all of this is a present grab, that these parents are like, hey, wait a minute. So we had a wedding, presumably, and we got wedding presents, and then we had a baby shower, and I want more presents. Let's have a gender reveal party. So everybody's got to troop to somewhere and watch some kind of explosion or whatever, and then they got to bring a present. What are we going to bring them? Well, what you bring? So these couples are just kind of raking in this loot for a non-announcement. And I mean, to me, like, I am willing, I think, to make a deal. I will let that language go through that we don't know how to assign sex identity at birth in exchange for no more gender reveals. I'll give something to the progressive left and take something away from gender reveals. I don't know. I'd have to think about this bargain, but I think it'd be a popular bargain.
I'm going to go the opposite way here. I think we do have to define that there are boys and there are girls. I think that's probably the more important thing. But at the end of the day, I would ban gender reveal parties that are a threat to human life. I think that's the compromise I would probably call for there. Rob, thank you so much for filling in for Jim the last 3 days. Enjoy your time off. I know you're headed off on vacation the next few days, so enjoy that, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Hey, thanks. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Rob Long, he is the host of The Martini Shot, which you can hear on Ricochet. He's the co-founder of Ricochet, in fact, co-host of the Glop podcast and a contributing editor at National Review Online. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Please subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. We're so grateful for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please tell your friends about us as well. Get us on those home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Find all of us on Twitter. He's at RCBL. Jim Garrity is at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Wednesday, and please join us on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Well, it's that time again. Spring breakers are going wild in Miami, causing new curfews. People are hesitant about getting the co-vaccine. And where's all the news on the border crisis? Hey, it's the Chicks here from the Chicks on the Right podcast.
Download and subscribe to our daily podcast to hear us pick apart and pick on the news of the day. Politics to pop culture. Nobody's safe, but it's all fun. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.